on Access Tech Live.
OpenAI launches its next generation. Can prosthetics get smart? And Greg Westlake joins us.
This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. The latest in tech and accessibility every week. Follow us and get involved now at Access Tech Live.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Access Tech Live. I am Stephen Scott. Marc Aflalo is joining me as always. How are you today, Marc?
I cannot complain. I'm feeling excited. Great show lined up. Excited to have 3 guests on this week, Stephen.
Absolutely, 3 incredible guests, according to my script here. So, let's see if that pans out. Who have we got? Well, we have Greg Westlake, who is the host of Level Playing Field, 5-time Paralympian and no stranger to AMI viewers. He'll be joining us this hour. Also, Mike Buckley is the CEO of Be My Eyes. He has some big news to talk about following OpenAI's Dev Day and how their announcements will affect the app. Plus, Jennifer Duke is the Senior Marketing Manager for Ottobock Prosthetics. Greg and Jennifer have worked together before, personally and professionally, so it's exciting to welcome them onto the same show as well. So it's going to be a busy one this hour, Marc. Shall we just dive right in?
Why not? Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Marc's got the headlines.
Now, Access Tech Live headlines.
So we begin with OpenAI, who held its inaugural developer event called Dev Day this week, bringing hundreds of developers from around the world together to discuss the latest innovations in artificial intelligence from the company. We'll try and break it down in plain English for you, starting with the length of content that you can feed into the model. Here's OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
Today, we are launching a new model, GPT-4 Turbo. GPT-4 supported up to 8K, and in some cases up to 32K context length. But we know that isn't enough for many of you and what you want to do. GPT-4 Turbo supports up to 128,000 tokens of context. That's 300 pages of a standard book, 16 times longer than our 8K context.
There's a whole lot of technical upgrades under the hood, but we'll focus on what matters the most. For example, the original GPT model only had data that cut off in September 2021. This new Turbo model has access to information up to April 2023. And OpenAI announced a new text-to-speech model that sounds supernatural, which makes apps more accessible. Here again is Sam Altman.
And with our new text-to-speech model, you'll be able to generate incredibly natural-sounding audio from text in the API with 6 preset voices to choose from. I'll play an example.
Did you know that Alexander Graham Bell, the eminent inventor, was enchanted by the world of sounds? His ingenious mind led to the creation of the graphophone, which etches sounds onto wax, making voices whisper through time.
This is much more natural than anything else we've heard out there. Voice can make apps more natural to interact with and more accessible.
The AI model is getting faster overall, cheaper overall, which will definitely make it more accessible to anyone who wants to use it. One of the companies we call friends, Be My Eyes, has worked closely with OpenAI and their Be My AI feature. CEO Mike Buckley was in the audience at OpenAI's Dev Day, and his company got a mention on stage. Here's what Mike had to say about the announcements.
We're seeing faster models, cheaper models, more powerful models, all wrapped into one, which is, I think, great for our community, but also just generally the community of developers looking to do really interesting and fascinating things with AI technology as a whole. And I vacillate every time I hear something between, gosh, this is incredible, innovative, exciting, between that and then thinking, well, I wonder how many startups this is going to put out of business today.
That's Mike Buckley from a conversation with Stephen Scott and John Priest on the Double Tap Daily podcast. Mike goes on to talk about how the new Turbo model can help Be My Eyes.
There are 2 things about our service right now that frustrates me. One is that it takes 9 seconds to render results, right? And the second is that the model still sucks on layouts with lots of buttons and complexity, right? Like a remote control or like a hotel phone that has 15 separate buttons on it. It often misidentifies where those are, and I'm optimistic that today we're gonna solve one of those with what we heard, or at least make it substantially better.
Mike's going to be joining us later on in the show, so we'll dive a bit deeper as well. In other AI news, Elon Musk has unveiled his new AI chatbot, Grok, inspired by the famous series Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The new ChatGPT rival will be made available to X subscribers for an additional fee and will be accessible through the same platform. The new chatbot has a playful tone, which Musk says will be a bit more sarcastic than its rivals, and, you know, but what could we expect from it? Elon Musk's company Neuralink is also working on a vision chip. This company, he says, is a few years away. The company's been developing implantable brain-computer interfaces for several years, and it's working towards its first human tests. Not much is known about the vision chip. Musk disclosed their work in a response to a father who wrote the CEO about his son's eye condition on social media, of course. Here's Elon Musk from Neuralink's show and tell last year.
The first two applications we're going to aim for in humans are restoring vision, and I think this is like notable in that even if someone has never had vision ever, like they were born blind, we believe we can still restore vision.
And that's a wrap on the news, Stephen. Lots of AI-driven stuff, really cool stuff, and we're going to see how this all ties into, of course, everything we're talking about today, especially with Mike Buckley a bit later on in the show.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time, of course, because the news on AI, it just evolves every day. I mean, every single day there's a new announcement coming out. And, you know, we try our best to keep up here, but even on a live show every week, I feel like we could be on the air and an AI story will just happen, usually because Elon Musk tweets something, or sorry, X's something, or posts something, whatever the official line.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to call that right now, you know.
No. Okay, listen, let's move on, because our question of the day today, this is a brilliant question, in the lead up to Black Friday, and of course all the sales that are coming up across the range. It's not just going to be in one store, but let's focus in on one store in particular. What was your last impulse buy on Amazon? This is such a great question, Mark, because
and there's no judgment here, Stephen, right? Because
no judgment.
You know,
no judgment.
Clearly, there's a lot of possible answers here. I'd have to go into my search history, which I'll do in the break, to see what that might be. There's so many of them that I can't actually remember what the last impulse buy might have been. Oh wait, no, it wasn't that. No, was it that? No, I don't think so.
No, that's just too much, honestly. And you know, I had a look, and there was a thing. I don't know if they've changed it, but last year you could actually go into your Amazon account and you could actually see how many things you had bought from Amazon over the course of the year. That was a terrifying number for me.
Yeah, I have got an Amazon business account, and I can run reports, and if I run a report for the year, it is absolutely terrifying, the amount of things that I have bought at Amazon. So let's, please, no judgment to anybody, especially Stephen and I here, okay? So if you want to get involved, let us know, of course, what was your last impulse buy on Amazon. If you want to get involved, you can follow us on all social media. It's at Access Tech Live. Our email address, feedback@accesstechlive.com. We encourage you to get involved and let us know. Again, no judgment here. Coming up, we're going to be welcoming the host of Level Playing Field on AMI TV. He's a 5-time Paralympian. His name is Greg Westlake, and he's joining us next here on Access Tech Live. Stick around.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. Latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back, guys. Greg Westlake is a 5-time Paralympian representing Canada at the Paralympics time and time again. He's also the host of Level Playing Field right here on AMI TV, now in its 4th season. The show showcases so much about sports and disability. Greg, welcome to Access Tech Live.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Let me start off by asking you, Greg, what drives someone like you when you're hosting a show like Level Playing Field?
What drives me is the storytelling. You know, for me, I was born with a congenital defect, so I've had a disability my whole life. And when I got involved in parasport and started meeting other athletes and organizations, I just realized what a special group of people it was that live in this kind of Paralympic community. And I'm sitting in a change room with cancer survivors, and I'm sitting in a change room with, soldiers who've served our country in battle. And you just realize that this isn't like a sad group of people that have disabilities. This is an inspiring, amazing group of people that you can learn so much from. And so for me, being able to tell their stories and some of these incredible athletes and people who maybe don't love to be as outgoing as myself, I get them on camera. We have some interviews. We film them for a day. And just telling the stories that have made such a profound impact in my life is kind of what drives me on a daily basis.
Greg, we're talking about prosthetics today. This is something that you're extremely familiar with, and I love watching Level Playing Field because the stories you tell from week to week are absolutely not only heartwarming, but they're just incredible, positive stories that I love watching. And when it comes to the prosthetic side of things, I've got to ask you, and we like to ask the questions here that people may be a bit embarrassed to ask, but just out of curiosity, is there a difference between the prosthetics you use day to day versus what people use in sports?
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? It's such a great question. And I don't think it's an offside question at all. And yeah, for me, there's a tremendous difference. If you watch like track and field and you see the runners, everybody loves talking about the blades. And they do help. And they do help you run faster. But you're never going to see an amputee just walking around in your day-to-day life doing his grocery shopping in blades because it's uncomfortable. And it would just be ridiculous. And so I wear completely different legs on a day-to-day basis. And one of my favorite prosthetists, and prosthetists are the people who make your artificial limbs for you. But one of my favorite analogies that he told me was kind of there's different legs that we can do up for you. There's like the Ferrari, the race car, or there's the Cadillac, sit back and be comfortable. And then you got swimming legs and all these things. And so ultimately it's, when you're going for a walk with your dog and your new baby on a weekend, do you want to be in the Cadillac or do you want to be in the Ferrari? And you probably want to be in the Cadillac. You want to be comfortable. You want to be able to, go do some trails, be out with your family for the day. So you wear a comfortable set of legs. Now, if I'm going to the gym and I need to show that I got some speed, now maybe I wear blades. Maybe I put something else on. But no, it's no different than shoes. It's no different than cars. It's kind of what is your goal for the day? And let's get you set up for success.
I want to ask you a little bit about computerized prosthetics, because this is something we're starting to hear a little bit more about, something I wasn't as aware of as I would like to be, and maybe you can tell us a bit more about it. In sports, it does make sense, I guess, for these kind of prosthetics to be used, but what would that impact on you? How would that impact on you day to day? Do you use them?
Well, it's again, another great question. For me, I don't, because I have all of my I'll say joints, like major joints, elbows and knees. And where the computerized chips are really helping amputees are for the people that are missing an elbow. So it's an arm amputee that's above the elbow, or it's a leg amputee that's above the knee. That's where these chips are making a huge difference, because we did a feature on Ottobock, and I'm sure you're going to talk to Ottobock, and so I don't want to step on their toes, but what they can do with these chips now is it basically replaces your knee. And so, yeah, you're wearing an artificial leg, but where the money and the tech is in that chip that's replacing your knee, that can simulate kicking out the lower portion of your leg so that you don't fall over when you're walking on a downhill, an uphill, a side hill. As we all know, once we leave our house, the world isn't safeguarded for people with disabilities. You got to adapt to the terrain. You have to adapt to the outside world. Not everything's done for you. And so that's where these chips are just absolutely massive. Is I'm around a lot of other amputees, and it's the people that are missing major, knees and elbows. That is just where it's incredible. And where it makes a difference in your life, to be honest with you, is just comfort day to day. And so for me, growing up as a kid, I had a whole different system that I used to use. And the big thing, it was me against me. I'd play hockey all day. I'd work out. I'd be active at recess. I'd come home, my legs would be so sore. Like I would just be in so much pain. So it was like one day of fun meant 2 days of me not being able to have some fun as a kid. Now the legs are so good and the systems are so different that now I can be so active and I can wake up and do it again the next day. And then I can wake up and do it again the third day. So what's nice about the tech now is, for me, as a guy in my late 30s now, it's all about comfort. It's all about being able to go out with my kid, my dog, my wife, and I can do that and not miss days to, I'll call it a quote unquote sick day. I don't have to take a sick day anymore because my legs are in too much pain. And that's all because of the technological advancements that have been made on prosthetics.
Greg, you talked about the environment and the world out there not being safeguarded for obviously people who are walking around with prosthetics. Do you think technology has improved the safety and the performance, especially when it comes to athletes? I think in sport, that's a major concern. It's not only about actually performing the act, but it's about doing it safely and making sure that you're not hurting yourself even more.
100%. And I think away from the field of play, away from sport, 100% way safer. So much work. And again, when we were with Ottobock, I witnessed it firsthand, but they had the computer, the chip processors on the computer, and they had the amputee going up and down stairs and ramps and all these different terrains, and what the knee could do was just incredible. And so for day to day, like that is just making such a profound difference in people's lives. Now, when it comes to the actual field of play, that's where it gets a little bit different, because like a lot of things in life, when you give something, you take something away. And so for technology, for me, I play a full contact sport for para ice hockey. Well, the faster we go, the harder the collisions are. And so as we make things faster, better, picture a downhill skier. Okay, we're going to make this apparatus for you on an artificial leg that now you can go down the hill 80 kilometers faster. Well, now that collision, when you do fall, is going to be a lot tougher as well.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I think we're really helping the sport performance, but to say that it's safer, I would say the collisions are more intense. I would say that some of that, you open yourself up to some catastrophic collisions. So it's a hard one to say, but that's also, isn't that what sports is about? And people with disabilities are no different. We want to push our bodies. We want to push our boundaries. We want to set world records. We want to go down the hill the fastest, reach the finish line first, score the most goals. That's no different. That is just high performance sport to a T. And if you love high performance the way that I love high performance, you'll take any edge you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, on Tuesday's episode of Level Playing Field, you'll be talking about a Canadian prosthetics company, Ottobock. We'll be talking to Jennifer, of course, from Ottobock today here on Access Tech Live. But what has your experience been with them? I know you've mentioned them already, but tell us a bit more about that.
Well, my first experience with Ottobock, and I don't know if the general public would know this, but when you go to the Paralympics, they have a shop set up in the village during the Paralympics, and it's just a free clinic for anybody who wants to go in and take advantage of it. So we talk about day-to-day life. I got to tell you guys, I feel so lucky every day that I wake up that I'm in Canada and that I have access to these incredible doctors and incredible technology for my legs. But for a lot of countries, they don't get that access. And so my first experience with Ottobock was just watching them help people from countries that maybe don't have the same access that I have access. And they help all these people over the Paralympics, and they just walk in and they'll give them a new wheelchair, a new piece for their leg, whatever it takes. So that's my first interaction with them. So it's all good vibes on my end. And then when we were there for the show for Level Playing Field, they were so good to us. They opened up their doors. They just let us fully in. We saw a lot of behind the scenes stuff about how they test their processors and how they test kind of the fake knees and the elbows and all that stuff, so that when they send a client out the door, they're not worried about that client's safety. And we just saw all the tests they do, and even just the care they put in to make sure that everything looks so real. Because that's the thing that we also don't talk about a lot nowadays, is I remember when I was a kid, I was walking on the beach one time, and a lady came up to my mom and she said, "How come your son's wearing cowboy boots on the beach?" My mom says, "He's not wearing cowboy boots. He has 2 artificial legs." But at that time, that was like the closest skin color they could get to my skin color. So there just always looked to be something off. And so I think that's another thing I appreciate about Ottobock. I'll let them talk about their technology and all the great things they do. But even just from the pure aesthetics part, the fact that they can make limbs now that are so, past the eye test, where kids now don't have to walk down the beach and have people stop them and ask them what they're wearing or why they're wearing cowboy boots. I think that's a pretty cool thing, because especially at a young age, or a new amputee, when you've just been in an accident or just been through something, you want to fit in. You want to feel like your life hasn't been completely turned upside down. And so the work that they do from the technological standpoint, from the aesthetic standpoint, I'm just a big fan, and I'm very appreciative that there's companies like that out there.
Greg, after 4 seasons of Level Playing Field, you're introducing us to so many really cool athletes out there. What are you learning? Are you learning stuff every episode that you do? And what can the audience expect when they tune in next week? Because next week you'll be talking about Ottobock.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, what you realize is, I mean, high performance sport is just one little microcosm of the show. Like, I don't even consider it a sports show at this point, and that's one thing that's changed after now doing it 4 seasons. I almost just view it as like a human element piece. You know, sport has just become a driver for a lot of people on our show, that they use it as a pathway to pull themselves out of a tough time. They use it as a pathway to do good charity work. They use it as a pathway to become a high performance athlete. And so for me, it's now just sharing these stories. And so for this upcoming week, Ottobock, that's a rare one where we actually get to feature a company. We don't do that a ton. We usually do people. And so now after 4 seasons, it's just, for me, it's a human element show. It's a human piece. It's about the human spirit and what people can overcome. And for me, what am I learning now? I think it's still that. It's just meeting new people. You know, just this last week, we had a man named Jake Peacock on the show. And he's not interested in parasport. He just wants to be the best Muay Thai fighter he can be. And we went to his gym, and he's missing an arm kind of right at the elbow on one side. But you would not want to get into a fight with this man. And what you learn is just, there's a lot of people who have that we don't care attitude. And I wish I had that more in my life. And this guy just says, I'm going to fight able-bodied people. I'm going to fight in their league, and I'm going to win. And he is.
Well, Greg, you
and he's
learned
doing
so
an
much.
incredible job.
Yeah, no, you definitely, obviously, you learn a lot, and I find I learn a lot just watching the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this week. Level Playing Field, of course, airs Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, and that Ottobock episode is coming up just next week, and you can catch it on AMI TV or, of course, on AMI Plus on your own schedule. When we come back here on Access Tech Live, we're going to introduce you to Ottobock and then bring on our next guests. We'll be right back.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. The latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Access Tech Live with me, Stephen Scott, and Marc Aflalo this week. Now, Ottobock is a Canadian company that has been pioneering prosthetics for over 100 years. Jennifer Duke is the Senior Marketing Manager for North America at Ottobock and joins us now from their headquarters in Burlington, Ontario. Jennifer, welcome to the show. Tell us the Ottobock story that began way back in 1919, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me today. We're actually a German company that started in 1919. So our Canadian office is located in Burlington, Ontario, but they started by the owner, Ottobock himself, started the company in Berlin, and they started manufacturing components. And the idea was to help veterans coming back from World War I to get back to mobility. And from there, they had to move the facility just due to like political unrest. The company is now located in Duderstadt in Germany. It was taken over by his son-in-law, Dr. Max Nader, in 1947. And since then has been passed along to his son. So it's still a family-run company, manufacturing many prosthetics and orthoses for people all over the globe. So it's a global company.
Jen, we talked off air so many times leading up to this conversation about the company, and I don't think we'll be able to do it justice in terms of talking about all the positivity you guys are bringing into the world. So I want to dive into a question for you, about prosthetics themselves. I'm curious how they're made to feel as much as a real extension of the human body as possible, because every experience must be different, right?
Absolutely. Two things to remember with prosthetics are like socket fit and alignment. Those are so important for our customers when they're looking after their patients. But everyone's experience is different. And what's important is that the patient finds the right device for them. it's not one size fits all. Everyone's lifestyle is different. There may be someone who's recently gone through an amputation, and prior to that, they were a runner, so they want to get back into running, or maybe they want to take up a sport. So it's really important that a proper assessment is done and the patient trials the unit. That's something that we offer too. They're free trials, so patients have the opportunity just to sign up and work with their prosthetist. We have a professional clinical services team as well that works with them to ensure that they've got the right unit for them.
Can I ask about how technology impacts this industry?
Yeah, so we are constantly reinvesting in R&D to develop new products, and some of the latest technology comes from, our initial microprocessor knee that we launched called the C-Leg. That was launched in 1997. It was actually developed by a Canadian, Kelly James. Ottobock acquired the patent, and since then, the rest of our microprocessor knees have developed based upon that. It really is a revolutionary product. It stimulates natural gait. It's intuitive. It's safe, super safe. It offers like a stumble recovery mode. And it's just got this intuitive stance feature as well. But since then, we have, the X3, which is a fully waterproof device that was developed for the military. It is now available for civilian use. But it's come a long way. Even myoelectrics. Max Nader introduced the first myoelectric arm. So hands, microprocessor hands and elbows. So it comes back to really feeling like the real thing, that it gives the user the opportunity to do the things that they either used to do, or even just those everyday things that they don't have to stop and think about it. The difficulty of tying up shoes or feeling safe while they're cooking and standing at the stove.
So is that the real difference between having a microprocessor or a computer-enabled prosthetic versus something that doesn't? Is it about the real kind of feedback, the more natural feeling to it? Is that what sets them apart?
For sure. So it's intuitive. So if you think about the amount of work that your brain does in order to allow you to make certain movements, if you have to constantly think about where you're walking, what kind of terrain you're walking on, are you going to catch your toe? That puts a lot of stress on you cognitively, right? So, and even on your sound side, sometimes your sound side will compensate for those movements, whereas a microprocessor knee is doing that for you. So it's a lot more intuitive.
So something that caught our attention was the clinic you set up at the Paralympics, and you do this every year, and Greg Westlake made reference to it just a few moments ago. What is that about? Is that all to do with commitment to the Paralympics, the passion for the Paralympics? And tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so this is something that we have been committed to since 1988. It's the Passion for Paralympics, and we are the technical sponsor for the Paralympics, which means that we set up on-site technical support staff that are there to support the athletes when they're coming off the track, if they need support with their wheelchairs or their prosthetic devices. So we know how important it is for an athlete to be able to get back into action and compete. And they've worked so hard to get there that we need to ensure that we're there to get them back at it. It's almost like a pit crew, in racing. It totally is. And there's a lot of energy on site. We also set up shops close to the athletes' village. So that, if they need help with even just their everyday prosthesis, we're there so that they can, truly feel the full experience of the Paralympics. But Paris is coming. It's next year. We're there. We're super excited to be a part of that. So, we've been committed to this for years, and we continue to moving forward.
Now, the peace of mind I'm sure it does to the athletes as well, to know that if something happens, they're not just out of it, they can actually get it fixed and do something on the spot is so incredibly cool. And, you know, I'm looking forward to the episode Level Playing Field next week, because it dives into a lot of the process and stuff and everything that you do. And as I said at the top, we're never going to, we could talk for an hour and probably not get through some of the stuff that you guys are doing. But what is upcoming? What kind of projects are you guys working on when you look down the road?
We always have new projects that are launching, and we're building upon reinvesting in R&D. We have, new mechanical knees, upgraded microprocessor knees. We just launched the Taleo Adjust Foot, which is like a carbon fiber foot that has an adjustable heel, which is pretty awesome. Many people wear higher heeled shoes, so it allows the user to do that. We have a quick change adapter, which allows the user to switch out. They can switch feet, they can switch knees. If they want to get into their running knee, or if they want to switch over to those high heels, they can do it instantly and not take up a lot of their time. I know we produce a lot of prosthetics, but we also produce orthotics as well. And the C-Brace is a microprocessor knee, ankle, foot orthoses. And we've seen a lot of really good results come from it. So we're continuing to make people aware of all of the options that are available. So just stay tuned. There's always a lot going on.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And honestly, I wish we could talk to you more. But the good news is you are going to be on Level Playing Field talking about all of this next week. So we look forward to that. Jennifer Duke, thank you so much for joining us here on Access Tech Live this week. If you want to know more about Ottobock, you can follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. Just look for Ottobock_North America. And of course, you can also visit Ottobock.com.
And of course, that Level Playing Field episode is Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on AMI TV, and of course the AMI Plus app. And of course, you can tune in whenever you want on AMI TV. Coming up, Mike Buckley joins us, the CEO of Be My Eyes, to break down how the OpenAI announcements affect their company. Stick around. This is Access Tech Live.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. The latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back. Now in the news this week, we have heard all about the improvements coming to ChatGPT with GPT Turbo. Well, we're going to get into all of this. One of the companies, though, that got a shout-out on stage was Be My Eyes. Joining us now is the CEO of Be My Eyes, Marc Buckley. Welcome to Access Tech Live.
How are you?
I'm good, Mike, and it's great to talk to you again. Of course, you were on Double Tap with me and Sean earlier in the week, but great to have you here on Access Tech Live with Marc and I. Tell us first, for our audience, what was it like hearing your company's name on stage at an event like this?
Look, it was great. It was an incredible thing for our teams, but I think as you and I have talked, I think it's an amazing thing for our community and the community of accessibility. This is the biggest moment in technology, I don't know, in a long time, right? The first OpenAI Dev Conference, and accessibility played a central piece of the opening keynote. I just think it's a fantastic development for the community as a whole. And of course, I take a little bit of pride and happiness in having Be My Eyes and our teams recognized. So that feels good.
I'm sure it lets you feel like a little kid again sometimes to hear your name up on stage for something like this. But you said it there, Mike. You said, accessibility on a mainstream event like this where everybody's paying attention is so important. And not only from the disability community, but just an example of what AI can do, and what you're doing with AI and what you're doing with ChatGPT and OpenAI is such an incredible example. What's next for you guys? Like, how do you take what came off that stage and just run and go?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I do want to thank OpenAI before I talk about what's next for us. We've been partnered on this, as you guys know, for 7 or 8 months. And not every company or organization decides to partner with an accessibility company, and they did. So I do want to thank them overtly for their work. What's next for us? You are going to see, before the end of the year, several additional feature launches for us with Be My AI. You will see the rollout of the service on Android. You will also see some additional user controls for the service, both in terms of the results that you want to have and a number of other things. So the development pipeline for us, Mark, is very, very busy. And, you know, our principle is we have to keep iterating and innovating and improving the product for the community, right? And so you're going to see a lot of that. I think the other thing that I want to point out is you're going to start seeing more deployments of Be My AI in customer service settings for two reasons. One, we need to pay the bills, right? And the companies, you know, that we work with for accessible customer service, they pay us fees that help us build great products for the community and keep our services free for the community. So you're going to see a lot of attention and news on how we're deploying Be My AI at the front end of customer service. I think you're also going to see some additional efforts from us to grow the community of usage in the global South and communities, you know, internationally.
There's a lot to unpack from that, so we'll step through this a little bit. But I want to just
you always tell me to come with some news.
I know, and I love it. I love when you bring news. But you know, I want to just dial it back a little bit, because for an audience who doesn't know what Be My Eyes is, or indeed how this relationship got going with OpenAI, could you maybe just give us a bit of detail on that? Because I think, honestly, I've heard this story a number of times because we've talked about it. But I think it's a fascinating story because OpenAI, to many people, is still very new, and it is very new in relative terms, especially in the tech world. It's only a year or so old. But how did your relationship start with them?
Yeah, I mean, it started with a cold call, right, to them, under the belief that, you know, we had really interesting information and understanding of community needs in the first hand, and a generalized belief that AI could benefit our community. I'm not an AI expert. I've learned a lot over the last 7 or 8 months, but I did come with a belief that AI held a lot of promise for accessibility. And so literally I cold called them. They took the call and they called me back 2 days later and really talked about us being an exclusive launch partner on this fascinating, powerful visual model that, as you know, is capable of describing images in incredible detail and with incredible accuracy. So, you know, it's amazing that they took the call, right? And they called back and they brought us in. Yeah. So, but that's literally how it started.
You know, Be My Eyes started connecting people who needed help with volunteers. So human-to-human contact, making obviously bridging the gap and allowing them to help each other. Obviously, the volunteers helping people who obviously couldn't see. How does the introduction of Be My AI affect the actual volunteers? Because we always talk about AI replacing humans. In this case, it does a little bit, but I don't think anything will ever be able to replace that human element of it.
It's a great question, Mark. First of all, thank you to our volunteers. There are over 7 million of them, and this is, I've talked about it as the largest digital volunteer army in the world, and I think that's not only true, but it's also remarkable. It's a remarkable look, in a very challenging time for humanity. It's a wonderful affirmation of humanity, right? Yeah. And so thank you to the volunteers. Interestingly, even though we've seen massive growth and adoption curves on the AI product, our call volumes stay the same. So there isn't a segment of our community, I think, Mark, to your point, that still appreciates that human connection, right? I think what we're also learning is, even though the AI is fantastic and the accuracy is getting better and better, giving people in our community the option to have a human being in the loop is mandatory, right? And so we're going to make sure that that is always there. And that'll happen in a couple of ways. One, it'll continue to happen just to have that access to the volunteer base, but also you're going to see us launch very soon human verification of AI results. at the option of the user.
Now, Mike, just going back to your point about cost, because it's something you and I have talked about a lot, and it's something that I think a lot of us in the community, I guess, fear a little bit. You know, Be My AI is right at the cutting edge of brand new technology and the latest developments, and it's currently free to its users. Is that really sustainable? It
has to be. It is absolutely our mission. It is core to our ethos. And, you know, look, you can always fail, right? We may fail in some capacity to grow the commercial size of our business as fast as we can. But just to be clear, we would go out and seek kind of donations and foundations to support this before we even contemplated charging our blind and low vision users. You know better than I that the stats on kind of economic difficulties faced by people in our community, it depends whose stats you believe, but the one I've seen most frequently is that 70% of people in our community are either underemployed or unemployed. And that means that, like, you know, $3,000 wearables or excessive monthly charges is not going to be able to serve our community. So our absolute intention is to keep this for free. We're working on a commercial model right now in discussion with OpenAI that makes sense for them and us. And I want to thank our customers, Microsoft, Google, Spotify, P&G, Barilla Pasta, many, many more that help us pay the bills.
Mike, I got to ask you about the wearable space for a second, because this must be something that excites you, even though we're still on the infancy. We're seeing like meta frames and stuff like that. But this seems like just a natural fit to tie into what you're doing. Does it excite you as much as it excites people who are sitting there going, let me see what we can do with this?
100%, Mark, right? I mean, look, I think you and I have actually talked about this a little bit in the past. There is no doubt in my mind that the future is a commercially inexpensive wearable, right? That captures real-time video and processing information of environments, right? That utilizes these visual assistance tools. There's no doubt that that's the future. Now, there's a ton of debates on which piece of hardware is going to win or which pieces of hardware will win. But there's no doubt where this is going. You know, the Humane Pin launch, I think, is official tomorrow. I saw a couple of tweets from them, and we've played with that device, and it's really cool. There are more developments that have to happen, and I can tell you that we've already had conversations with Humane. Nothing's done, so no promises, but like, we think that's the future for sure.
This is so exciting, and I think, you know, like you say, with the wearable space growing as it is, I think very quickly we're going to come up with something that is going to be super intelligent and capable. And, you know, for Be My Eyes users, for Be My AI feature users, this is such an exciting time. And, you know, I think a lot of the community, including me, just love it. We use it every day. It is such an important part of our lives. So thank you for coming on once again, Mike, and sharing your thoughts on all of this. And, you know, congrats for being right at the cutting edge of all of this. CEO Mike Buckley, CEO of Be My Eyes, thank you so much for coming back on to Access Tech Live.
Thank you for having me. You know, even though my wife has told me I've been spending more time with you than her lately, I still enjoy it. I do have an ask.
Bring her on.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe next time. I do have an ask. I would love feedback from you and from all your listeners about kind of both good and bad customer service experiences, because that's how we're going to fund this model going forward, right? And if our community can communicate with us about where there are gaps in customer service needs, that will allow us to go and, you know, establish more commercial relationships and build more great products. And so I think we have a chance really to set up this virtuous circle, but we need your help.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us. What was your last impulse buy on Amazon? Do you have an answer for that on top of your head? Do you know?
Oh man, I bought an ugly pair of
okay, you can think about it and ask on social media, okay? But thank
New
you
York
for coming
Jets
on.
sneakers.
There you go. New York Jets sneakers. So we'll add that to the list. Mike Buckley, CEO of Be My Eyes, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get to your answers to the question of the day. What was your last impulse buy on Amazon after we take a quick break here on Access Tech Live? Do stick around.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. The latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Absolutely right. Yes, this is Access Tech Live with me, Stephen Scott, and Marc Aflalo, and time to get to our question of the day. This is a good one this week, and I'm so embarrassed by this because honestly,
Why?
I did
Don't be embarrassed, Stephen. Don't be embarrassed
honestly,
unless what you're going to tell me you bought on Amazon was embarrassing.
Well, okay, I'm going to give you a guess, okay? And I bet in a million guesses you would not figure this out.
Well, then why are you making me guess? You're just going to embarrass me. I'm going to guess you bought Kleenex, toilet paper, some household item. Can I generalize it like that?
That's almost close. That's very close. Not too bad,
really?
actually. Yeah, so my last impulse buy on Amazon, it wasn't that, but it was a little woolen mug holder for my mug. My mug of coffee gets cold. So, you see, I have a little knitted sweater for my
So you've got a sweater
mug.
for your mug. Okay. Do you think that sweater is going to keep the contents of that mug warm?
It keeps my hand nice and warm. I don't know about the contents of the mug, to be perfectly honest, but yeah, my hands are warm, and that's all that really matters.
Okay.
That is my last thing I bought. That is honestly the last thing I bought on Amazon. I just checked.
Mine, you know, I'll get to mine in a second because it's an interesting one. But Wendy wrote us and said that the last thing she got on Amazon was holiday Rice Krispies. You see, I always forget you can buy snacks and food on Amazon. One day there will be nothing you cannot buy on Amazon.
What is the difference between Rice Krispies and holiday Rice Krispies?
I think there are just like colored Rice Krispie pieces in it.
And the word holidays written on them. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
And $2 more to the cost. Dave Brown, you might know him from Now with Dave Brown. Ice cube trays. Okay.
Useful.
Let's go with that.
Yep.
Yeah, very useful. Genevieve writes an electric lint remover. Okay.
I want one of those. Can you get that?
No, but you know what? Can I be perfectly honest? I've bought one of those before. I've used them. You know what works better than an electric lint remover? Duct tape or some really sticky like Gorilla tape. Just wrap it around backwards on your hand and it gets all the lint off. You have absolutely no care, and way cheaper.
I'm leaning in, Mark. I'm leaning into your ear, and I'm going to tell you it's a tech show. So we have to go with the tech. I'm sorry, the tech wins.
Fine. Oh, God. You know what? You're fine. Be that way. Another one. Here's a good one. Here's Kara writes, a Chromecast Google TV. It was cheaper than buying a new TV. Now, I would argue that actually it's not necessarily cheaper than buying a new TV these days because you can get some of these smart TVs for like under $300-400. But you know what? We're going to have a gift guide episode in probably, I don't know, about a month from now, maybe 2-3 weeks from now, we'll talk about some of the different tech ideas and things. And you know what? 90% of this stuff you can get on Amazon. So I think it's gonna top the list. So what do you think mine is? I've got a bunch of things here, like in the past 48 hours. I'm looking down at my order history.
I cannot judge with you because you buy so much stuff. I don't even think you know what you buy, to be perfectly honest. But look, before that, though, before I get to that, I just want to quickly mention the Chromecast. Great point, Cara. But I would also say, just remember Fire TV Stick, Roku Stick as well. These are great for actually smartening your television without spending a lot of money. So, Cara, I'm with you on this one. Anyway, back to you. I'm going to guess battery charger.
No, battery charger. I don't want to use a chargeable batteries. Come on. Arriving today is an Xbox Elite controller. There's a story to this. This was an instant buy last night because my son told me he broke mine. But before that, I got some cables, a keyboard here, Q-tips. Do you know what Q-tips are?
I have no idea what Q-tips are.
Okay, Q-tips are like the cotton swabs. The cotton, there you go. They're not meant for balloons.
See, that's a Britain versus Canada thing, right? Okay, so we call them cotton buds, you call them Q-tips. Okay.
Okay, they're Q-tips. So anyhow, thank you for getting involved, guys. Of course, thank you to all our guests this week, Mike Buckley, Jennifer Duke, and Greg Westlake. On behalf of Stephen Scott, I am Marc Aflalo. Let us know what you think about absolutely everything we spoke about today. Feedback at accesstechlive.com. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Access Tech Live. Follow us online at all social media at Access Tech Live. Email us feedback@accesstechlive.com. Hosted by Stephen Scott in Glasgow and Marc Aflalo in Montreal. Written by Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. Live show director, Anastasia Spalding Stenhouse. Technical director, Caitlin Robinson. Audio, Jordan Mulgrave. Live graphics and playback, Kingsley Juco. Graphics coordinator, Eliza Rocco. Integrated described video specialist, M. Williams. Supervising producer, Michelle Dudas. Copyright 2023, Accessible Media, Inc.
An AMI original production.